was the vehicle by which FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors could improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. This was clearly a fishing expedition.
And that Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley exposing the level of unchecked power Special Prosecutor Jack Smith had during his so-called Arctic frost investigation, as Smith sought nearly 200 subpoenas to track the phone records of Republicans. All of them appeared to be directed toward Republicans and staunch supporters of President Trump. No other reason. In one instance, my next guest, Senator Ted Cruz, had his phone records subpoenaed, with federal judge Judge Boasberg issuing an order to AT&T, Cruz's cell phone provider, to release his records and not tell the senator about the order for at least a year. According to Cruz, Judge Boasberg justified his decision, saying there's reasonable grounds that the senator will destroy or tamper with evidence on his phone if he finds out that he is being tracked by Jack Smith. AT&T ultimately did not comply with the subpoena against Cruz, Cruz said, citing the speech and debate clause in Article 1 of the Constitution. However, Verizon did comply with Smith's subpoena for phone records of lawmakers who used that carrier, according to documents reviewed by Fox News Digital. Verizon justified their cooperation, saying, quote, they were facially valid and the information sent contained only phone numbers, not names. The company also said, after speaking with the Senate Sergeant at Arms, that it is now changing its policies so that in the future it can push back on requests from law enforcement for phone records of congressional members. Joining me now with more on all of this is the senator himself, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, thanks very much for being here. This is outrageous about AT&T and Verizon. Can you tell us more about what you went through?
Well, sure. Maria, good morning. Good to be with you. Arctic frost is Joe Biden's Watergate. And in fact, in terms of abuse of government power, it makes Watergate pale in comparison. In November of 2022, Donald J. Trump announced his re-election campaign for president. 3 days later, the Biden Justice Department appointed Jack Smith. His mission, ostensibly, was to investigate what had happened 2 years before on January 6th. But remember, the Biden DOJ had been locking up little old ladies who were protesting on the National Mall. They'd been doing that for 2 years. Jack Smith was appointed with one mission: stop Donald Trump. Do not let the American people vote for Trump as president. And he took his orders and launched a dragnet, the scope of which has never been seen. He issued at least 197 subpoenas directed at over 430 individuals and organizations, all Republicans. So he went after the Republican Attorney General's Association. He went after Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. He went after Citizens United, and he issued subpoenas to 9 U.S. senators, all Republicans. I was one of them. The subpoena he sent to my cell phone record, AT&T, was for my cell phone records, my voicemails, my texts, the communications in and out, the geolocation. And he sent it to AT&T. As you noted, AT&T did the right thing. Their lawyers looked at this subpoena and said, we can't hand this over. This is protected by the speech and debate clause. However, AT&T also got on top of that subpoena an order signed by Judge Boasberg that ordered AT&T, you cannot let Cruz know about this subpoena because, as you just read, he found as a judicial matter that if I was notified, I would destroy or tamper evidence and tamper with witnesses. Now, that is absolutely absurd. Verizon, unfortunately, did hand over the records of 8 senators. The speech and debate clause did not dissuade them from doing so. And we've now found out those other 8 senators, those subpoenas also came with judicial orders saying you could not tell the senators. When you have the Biden Department of Justice subpoenaing 20% of the Republicans in the Senate, it is an egregious abuse of process. It is a fishing expedition. And we need to have a full and thorough investigation and accountability for every executive branch official that signed off on weaponizing the government. And I believe that the House of Representatives should impeach Judge Boasberg. Judge Boasberg was the one who made findings that he had no basis for. And when he did that, he took off his judicial robe. He just became a partisan crusader. He joined with Jack Smith in the mission to try to stop Donald Trump from being reelected. Thankfully, the voters prevailed. Democracy prevailed. But I'll tell you what, if, God forbid, Kamala Harris had become president, we would never, ever, ever find out about this. They would have buried their abuse of power. And what's critical, this can never happen again.
This is unbelievable, Senator. And Judge Boasberg has been around for a long time. He was also the same judge that gave a smack on the wrist to the FBI agent who lied about Carter Page to try and say that Carter Page was not working with the CIA when, in fact, he was, so that they could spy on him during the Russia collusion story. He was also the judge that tried to stop President Trump's agenda. Now, Verizon sent a letter to Senator Chuck Grassley, and they said, nonetheless, with the benefit of hindsight and informed by Verizon's discussions with Senate leadership, going forward, we are going to make changes to our practices. Are you surprised that Verizon just gave up the goods and then didn't tell the senators that they were being tracked for a year, just as Judge Boasberg and Jack Smith wanted?
Yeah, look, I am surprised that Verizon did that. They actually sent Verizon a subpoena for me as well for my office phone, for the landline that sits in my Senate office phone in Washington, D.C. And Verizon responded they didn't have records on that one, so they didn't comply with the subpoena that was sent to Verizon for me. Look, I'm surprised. I worked very closely with Verizon, and their handing over the records is not conduct I would expect of them. I think they're feeling understandably that there are a lot of senators who are really unhappy that Verizon did not more vigorously protect their privacy. You know, AT&T is a good Texas company based in Dallas, Texas, I'm proud of AT&T for affirmatively doing the right thing. They went to their legal counsel, and the legal counsel said, look, speech and debate protects this. We're not going to be part of this partisan fishing expedition. That was the right thing to do, and I think there's a very real possibility you're going to see Congress act to change the law to prevent. We don't want either party being able to do this and just surveil the opposing party.
Of course. Real quick, Senator, before you go, will the government open this upcoming week? This is getting seriously impacting the U.S. economy. What's your take?
I think it's likely to open Wednesday or Thursday of this week. The Democrats will wait until after Election Day because they think a shutdown is good for energizing the crazies in their party. But I think it'll be either late this week or early next week.
Are you going to have to give on the Obamacare subsidies?
No, the Democrats will collapse entirely.
Okay. Senator, thanks very much for being here. Wonderful to speak with you. Senator Ted Cruz. We'll be right back with the CEO of NVIDIA. Jensen Huang is here next.